Borada, welcome to this taxi licensing and rights of way committee meeting. My name is Councillor Carl Lewis. I have the pleasure of chairing this meeting today. Happy New Year to you all, and we'll go into the first item on the agenda, which is apologies on the roll call, please. Over to you, Carol, for that.
Thank you, Chair. So, Councillor Carl Lewis.
Present.
Councillor Gareth D. Jones.
Amma.
Councillor Tom Colbert. Councillor Angela Davis.
Amma.
Councillor Deb Edwards.
Present.
Councillor Joseph, sorry, she's not longer on the committee. Councillor Hylwyn Hume. Present. Councillor Peter James.
Present.
Councillor Adrian Jones and send apologies. Councillor Gareth E. Jones.
Present.
Councillor Karina Kenyon Wade.
Present.
Councillor Jeff Morgan.
Present.
Councillor Gareth Pugh.
Present.
Councillor Edwin Roderick. No. Councillor Elwyn Vaughan.
Amma.
Councillor Jonathan Wilkinson.
Present.
And Councillor Hugh Williams.
Amma.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Carol, for that. On to item number 2 on the agenda, which is minutes from the previous meeting held on the 23rd of November 2023. They are pages 5 and 6. Could I have a proposer and seconder to accept them, please? Thank you very much, Councillor Gareth. Councillor Howland Hume, thank you very much. Okay, on to declarations of interest. A, to receive any declarations of interest from members relating to items to be considered on the agenda. B, to receive members' requests that a record be made of the membership of town and community councils where discussion has taken place of matters for the consideration of this committee. C, to receive declarations from members of the committee that they'll be acting as a local representative in respect to an individual application being considered by the committee.
Hello, Chair.
Councillor Tom Colbert, please.
Yeah, I have an interest in item 4.3.
Thank you very much. We'll record that. D, to note details on members of the county council who are not members of the committee will be acting as a local representative in respect to an individual application being considered by the committee. Don't believe we have. So we're on to item number 4.1, updates. Has everyone had chance to view the updates? If someone hasn't, please let me know and we will pause the meeting for you to read those updates that came through last night. Nope. Okay, we can proceed. Okay. So the first item on the agenda is application 23/0630 FUL, land adjacent to Brynllawr Hall School, Kerry. Full planning application for proposed replacement school auxiliary buildings on a mugger, landscaping and associated works. Taking us through this application is Richard Edwards, Senior Planning Officer. Over to you, Richard.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, all. So before you, as just mentioned, we have a replacement school adjacent to Brynllawr School. The application is before committee as the applicant is Powys County Council. Just to bear in mind with this application, Welsh Government have exercised their right to call in the application. Therefore, Powys Planning Department are unable to grant planning permission for the development without prior authorisation from Welsh ministers. So should a decision be made, it will be forwarded to Welsh Government for their final consideration. The application site lies outside the development boundary of Kerry, as defined by the Powys Local Development Plan. The site comprises an area of open land and playing fields associated with Brynllawr Hall School. Brynllawr Hall is a Grade 2 listed building and is located to the southwest of the proposed site. The large village of Kerry is located approximately 145 metres northwest of the application site, separated by an area of ancient woodlands. The application site seeks access onto the classified C2012, which runs northwards through Kerry and southwards towards Pentre. As mentioned, consent is sought for the proposed replacement school, ancillary buildings, a mugger pitch, landscaping and associated works. Here is a slide. The red line denotes the replacement school site, with the blue line denoting Brynlawr Hall School, the Grade 2 listed building. Here's a proposed site layout denoting the layout of the proposed school. There are speakers on the application, so I'll hand you back to Carol to introduce those, and I'll carry on my presentation thereafter. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. First of our speakers is Councillor D. Jones from Kerry and Sound Community Council. Councillor Jones, you have 8 minutes and you may begin when you're ready.
Good morning, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. Very happy New Year to you all. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak today. My name is David Jones. I'm, for my sins, Chair of Kerry Community Council. Since this application came to our attention almost 12 months ago, February of last year, we've tried to speak to as many residents locally as we can. We've held a public meeting on the 5th of June, and I have to tell you that the support within the area for this scheme to move the site is virtually zero. The important point is, if you'd have stuck with the original site, people are in agreement. You know, we accept there's been a school there for many, many years. I think this hall was handed over to Powys in something like 1949. So there isn't, you know, it's not NIMBYism. We're happy enough with the school there. But why have you moved it out onto a greenfield site? You know, a couple of the previous slide, the existing school, and you can put it up if you care to. Yeah, so that's the original school. You're putting it out on this site. Okay, that site is completely unobtrusive. You know, I travel off the hill every morning taking my daughter to meet the bus. And, you know, I noticed this morning, you don't notice that school. But, you know, when you come out here, it's a different question altogether. I can't understand why the people of Kerry weren't given, you know, if you're having a consultation, why Kerry people were not included in that, not a little bit of dotting the I's and crossing the T's, you know, and that is what is encouraged, because, you know, planning policy is to consider the brownfield sites before the green. You know, that's not me making the rules, that's the planning guidelines. I refer you to paragraph 2326 of the LDP, which advises in policies which enable the provision of new community facilities, such as modern schools, the LDP directs development to sustainable locations and influences design, sustainable design. Redundant premises provide regeneration opportunities, redundant premises, which can contribute to the national planning policy prerogative to make the best use of brownfield land. Now, what you've got here is Brynlawr Hall, the old seat of the Brynlawr estate, which was a major factor in the life of Kerry over very many years. Now, why hasn't that building been incorporated into these plans. It's grade 2 listed. It's a very fine building. And, you know, from what I can see, it's been, you know, it's just been left. I mean, on the last minute, I notice in the delegation report that the old school has been included in this scheme, but it wasn't previously. You know, so I can't understand, you know, what a wonderful facade for a school to have an old grade 2 listed building. You know, all of a sudden in Wales, we seem to want to get rid of everything we've got from the past. You know, and we only need to look over the country. You know, Eton, Harrow, Gordonstone. Let's look at the universities, Oxford, Cambridge. They're all using old buildings. So I don't accept this argument that, you know, the old building is redundant. It can't be made suitable. You know, that doesn't wash with me. It doesn't wash with the people of Kerry. So, you know, we should be using the old site, not the new one. There are other advantages in using the old site. I noticed with this site, the drainage, we've got quite a complicated system in terms of having pumping units and whatever, swales, 2 swales on that land, a drainage field. You know, we're in the 21st century here. Why is that not getting connected to the main sewer in Kerry? If you were on the old site, it's just down the road, because that main sewer comes to the top of Common Road. It comes to the nearest house to, and you can see it on your plans. In fact, it comes to not that one, it comes to that property there. So you could have your drainage coming down by the side of the existing drive, and you could have a pumping station down here, and you'd be connecting to your sewer on the top of Common Road. You know, I just can't see the logic in this. I can't see the logic. The siting of this new development seems to go against the planning policy Wales statement also, that requires the selection of sites which can be made easily accessible by sustainable modes, as well as incorporating appropriate, safe and sustainable links, including active travel networks within and between developments. You see, the other problem with this, you know, what about these houses here? You know, this land sits on a plateau, okay? And the bottom of that swale, there's a swale in somewhere here. The bottom of that swale is 1 meter above the road. Okay, and I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the swale is a pond. Okay, so when you get a lot of flooding, as we've had now in this last fortnight, we've had it all autumn actually, haven't we? You know, where's that water going to do? Where's it going to go when it fills up? You know, it's got to come out on the road here. It's got to come down to these old these houses, isn't it? You've got the timber yard here, which is part of the Naylor estate. Brynlawch is the Naylor estate, together with Leighton Hall. And you know, I don't think it's fair on these people. You know, I mean, we accept with any property you can have houses built on the adjoining field. Okay, adjoining field, but here, you know, the topography makes it a major problem in terms of your water seeping down and you know, through the property. You've also got the school and the school windows looking directly into the bedrooms of these houses. You know, I don't think it's fair, and I don't think there's anyone in this room would want that situation to happen to their property. I think that says it all, doesn't it? I wouldn't want it. And, you know, our job as a Kerry Community Council is to protect those people, our residents. Kerry people are the people that are affected. There's nobody else affected. There's hardly a teacher in the school that lives in Kerry. They're all been shipped in. The pupils are shipped in from a wide area, including Shropshire. And so, you know, it's the residents of Kerry that are going to live with this long term. So, you know, I'm extremely concerned about it. And you know, this could have all have been avoided. People are accepting it on the existing site. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Jones. Our next speaker is Mr. David Archer, an objector, please.
Good morning. I just want to pick up on a couple of points. Firstly, the site, the proposed site is, as Mr. Jones said, is in a very elevated position. I think before any decision is taken on this, the councillors should request further photographs of the site. I live in the Pentry, a small hamlet down here.
Excuse me, sir. Would you mind sitting down, because the panelists at home can't hear you when you're standing up? Is that okay?
Sorry?
Could you sit down if that's possible?
I move, you can use that speaker.
If you could sit down, because the speaker, the microphone is there, you see, and
Right.
people at home can't hear you, you see.
Okay,
Yeah.
right.
Okay,
I
thanks.
live in the Pentry, the small group of houses down the bottom. And I've lost my train of thought now.
It's okay, it's okay. Have a-
Okay, yes, the site is in a very elevated position. If you look at the site from, am I allowed to stand up?
You
at
can
the point?
stand up, yes.
If
but-
you look from the site, from down here, you look across between that house and that house, the site, you can see the whole field. And if you look across from there, you can see where the new school is going to be built. It's going to be just so distinctive. It will be seen from many places. And even though it's meant to be one story, on the submission, there was no drawing showing the height above the ground. I asked the people at the consultation and they said, no, we haven't done one. We can't show how high it will rise, but I think that you should see more photographs from different positions. The photographs that were submitted are biased at the best. The other thing is that the whole concept of this proposal is to bus the children twice a day from all over Powys to the school. The whole thing is built on taxis and minibuses, a fleet of them. Somewhere else in Powys, I'm sure, would reduce the number of journeys per day. I couldn't see anything in the documents to say that any costings have been done on the cost of transport to and from the school. Powys County Council and the Welsh Government all say that you should use brownfield sites wherever possible, and this is a greenfield site, and that you should encourage walking and cycling wherever possible, and that you should minimise the use of of cars and other vehicles. If the councillors vote for this, they're going against their own guidelines. And I think you've got to live with that. The other thing is that being in the Pentry, this road where all the traffic is now instructed to use it's a single track road. And the documents say that there are, 23 passing places or proposed. There is one passing place at the moment, one just there at the top of a narrow single lane. The other 23, the other 20 odd are all people's driveways. They expect 2 tractors to move into somebody's driveway to pass. The road is totally unsuitable for the traffic that's proposed. This, in the papers, they say that they did a traffic survey where they put those rubber things across the road just up there. And they say, if you read the papers, they say that it's suitable for existing traffic, but they're going to move the whole twice a day, all new volume of traffic to go up. That's not been considered. It's not in the papers anywhere, as far as I can see. And the other thing is that at the bottom there is liable to flooding. We were flooded. We were flooded in 2012, 17 inches of water, and a lot of the water came down that road. If you have the swale there, which, as my friend said, is the bottom of the swale that disperses the water is 1 meter above the road opposite that house. So the water is just going to come out there. In heavy rain, there is water comes on from a, from a, not a stream, but water just discharges onto the road, and that comes round. And that triangle is a grass triangle, and it stops the water. It stops the water coming down the road. It directs it across here, and it finds its way to a brook. But the proposal is to get rid of that triangle. And if the road is lowered, then that water is going to come down the road rather than being directed away from us. This proposal is it's against the interests of the people living in the Pentry and the houses up there. I think. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. David Archer. Now I call upon Mr. Dylan Green, Agent for Aspreach Planning, please. Mr. Dylan Green, you have the combined time. It's only objectives, is it? So you have 8 minutes.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Thank you, Chair and members of the Planning Committee for the opportunity to speak today in support of the full planning application for a replacement school at Brynllywelch Hall in Kerry. Hopefully, I won't take the full allocated time, as the case officer has already provided a thorough assessment of the development within the report. Before I address the consultation responses and benefits of this replacement school, I'll firstly provide some additional background to the application. As those of you who are familiar with Brynllywelch Hall, it is a Grade 2 listed former mansion house dating back to 1829. It was purchased by Powys County Council and has been used by Brynllywelch Hall School for the provision of alternative educational facilities for children with a variety of behavioural, emotional or social requirements. However, given its age, its condition and arrangement, it is no longer deemed adequate for modern education purposes, particularly given the vulnerable nature of the pupils. The buildings associated with the school are in very poor condition. Temporary accommodation has been provided in order to vacate parts of the original building, which are no longer fit for purpose, and there are significant health and safety and safeguarding issues. In terms of some of the issues identified by the school, the heating is described as erratic and difficult to control, and lesson time is lost due to transition between buildings. Classrooms are too small to meet the needs of the pupils and are damp, mouldy, and in some cases, in need of substantial repair and maintenance. The stairs and banisters are unsafe and enable risky behaviour, and large objects such as radiators and pipes in the classrooms means that supporting pupils when in crisis can be difficult. The stark reality is that the school cannot continue to operate from within its current premises, and it is unable to provide an appropriate environment for its vulnerable pupils. In light of this, as part of the 21st Century Schools programme, it has been identified that a replacement school is required that will provide a flagship community-focused school within a modern teaching environment, and funding for the new school has already been allocated by Welsh Government. In terms of what will happen to the current school, it must be noted that this is outside the scope of the current application presented before you today. However, it is likely to be the subject of a feasibility study to determine its potential for reuse in the future. The inclusion of condition 25 will ensure that this existing premises and the proposed new school would only ever operate as one school unit. This is to safeguard the cumulative impact of two schools operating concurrently. As the planning officer confirms within the committee report, the local development plan supports the provision of local community facilities under policy C1. Therefore, the principle of development is acceptable and in line with Planning Policy Wales and the development plan. With regards to a review of alternative options, as is noted within the officer's report, a site selection assessment was undertaken and a number of sites in and around the Newtown and Kerry area, including the current site, were considered from a number of perspectives, including potential planning issues, location, size, highways, topography, drainage, contaminated land, flooding and land ownership, as well as cost. The outcome of the site selection process was that the proposed site had more advantages than the others due to being free from significant planning constraints, its proximity to the existing facility and it being under council ownership. The proximity to the existing school also promotes a sense of continuity and familiarity, which is particularly important for the specific needs of the pupils of the school. As the school also proposes workshops and an animal unit for small holding type animals for use by the pupils, it was important to ensure the school would be situated in an appropriate location for such use, including considering the welfare of the animals. The application has been subject to a wide consultation process with statutory consultees and local residents, both pre and post submission, including 2 public exhibitions, all of which are addressed within the application and in the officer's report. It is acknowledged that the Community Council have raised objections to the application, primarily relating to the principal development and the impact on the highway network and the proposed access. But members will note from the report that there are no objections from technical consultees in relation to the principal development, highways, access, ecology, heritage, drainage, trees, flood risk, landscape, privacy or amenity on neighbouring properties. SAB approval has also recently been obtained. On the basis of all of the above, it is clear that the application before you today represents an acceptable and sustainable form of development, which complies with the relevant national and local planning policies, and its approval would allow a new community-focused school for vulnerable pupils within a modern teaching environment. It is therefore respectfully requested that members support your officer's recommendation and grant full planning permission for this development as proposed. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch, Mr Dylan Green. That concludes our speakers on this particular application. I'll hand back now to Richard to take us to his recommendation. Over to you, Richard, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just reiterate the points that I discussed with him at the presentation thoroughly. The application site lies outside the development boundary of Kerry as defined by the Powys Local Development Plan. The site comprises an area of open land and playing fields associated with Bryn Lawr Hall School. As noted, Bryn Lawr Hall is a Grade 2 listed building located to the southwest of the proposed site. The village of Kerry is located 145 metres northwest of the application site, separated by ancient woodlands. Consent is sought for the proposed replacement school, ancillary buildings, a mugger pitch, landscaping and associated works. As mentioned, the existing buildings associated with Bryn Lawr Hall School are considered to be in a very poor condition, categorised condition D. Therefore, as part of the 21st Century Schools programme, it has been identified that a replacement school is required or provide a brand new purpose-built school with 64 places in age-appropriate environments. The proposed replacement school will measure approximately 82 metres in length and 28 metres in width at the widest point, reaching a height of approximately 7 metres. The building will comprise of classrooms, specialised rooms, offices, change and wash shower facilities, main hall, plant room, and other associated educational spaces. The school will be constructed using a mixture of materials, including timber rain screen cladding, treated and stained, along with aluminium framed windows and colour-coated metal seam roof incorporated solar panels. There will also be outdoor teaching canopies stretched over freestanding steel structures. The site will incorporate a mugger pitch, parking areas, coach mini bus drop-off areas, along with extensive landscaping measures across the site, farm pens, polytunnel, workshops, and other associated buildings. Planning Policy Wales provides guidance on the national sustainable placemaking outcomes and their relationship to PTLRW themes and wellbeing goals. It is considered that the proposed development is in accordance with both the placemaking and wellbeing goals on the following grounds. The development will aid in the functioning of an existing educational facility to the benefit of the wider rural community. The development will assist in ensuring a fit-for-purpose educational facility for future generations and promotes the retention of the use in the locality to the benefit of a vibrant Welsh culture. The development is located close to existing transport networks. Impact on the environment and historic and cultural assets will be acceptable. The public right-of-way will be protected and maintained. The impact upon communities and local residents is considered acceptable. The application site is located outside but close to the settlement development boundary of Kerry, which is categorised as a large village under the Powys Local Development Plan. The site is located adjacent to the existing Brownfield School facility and connected to the settlement of Kerry by the classified C2012, which is separated by an area of ancient woodlands. The site, being adjacent to the large village of Kerry, benefits from public transport links to Newtown, which forms part of the Roehaveron regional growth area, with Kerry situated on the periphery of this area. As mentioned in the public speaking section, the plan agent has undertaken a sequential test to inform site selection, and through this process has determined that the site subject to this application to be the most appropriate for the proposed development. The other sites available for consideration have been assessed against a RAG status and have been discounted for various strategic reasons. Therefore, officers consider that due consideration has been afforded to the site of the proposed school to ensure that adequate provisions for a modern teaching environment for Bryn Lawr School is achieved. Bryn Lawr Hall School will remain given the building's Grade 2 listing status, along with the curtilage listed structures on site. However, a condition will be attached to any granted or planning permission that will control the use of the existing and proposed school site to operate as a single unit. Given the site and the policy considerations, the proposed development is considered to fundamentally be in accordance with policy C1 of the Powys Local Development Plan and considered to be acceptable. As mentioned, the proposed school will measure approximately 1,730 square metres and will be single storey in height. And by virtue of this scale is subservient to Bryn Lawr Hall located to the west. The school, being a functional development, has been specifically designed to meet the needs of the users and deliver the service that it provides. Along with the school, the site incorporates several other facilities associated with the operation of the school: a mugger pitch, farm pens, polytunnels, outbuildings, and workshops. So just going back to this slide, the dark blue area is the school in question. You've got the mugger pitch to northeast in the orangey colour, and you've got some lighter blue areas which are outbuildings. You've got parking areas to the north. You've got drop-off area to the southeast. You've got swales, extensive landscaping measures throughout the proposed development. Here you can see the elevational drawings of the proposed development with information in respect of the proposed materials, which I'll cover now. Okay, so the proposed the school will be a single storey pitch roof, timber cladded, which is typical of recent constructions throughout Powys. The use of cladding is seen as appropriate material, which will be stained to ensure the colour of the material does not bleach over time. The various outbuildings proposed on site will all be of similar construction. So that's a floor plan. Let's go to the outbuildings. Yeah, so there will be a similar construction, timber rain screen cladding, stained dark grey with artificial slate roofs. The proposed buildings are considered to be appropriate design, and given a finishing material will help blend into surrounding areas of the site. A close boarded timber acoustic fence measuring approximately 1.8 metres will flank the northeastern boundary of the mugger. So the pitch along here. Whilst a 3-meter rebound sports mesh fence will encompass the mugger also. The sports mesh fencing is a typical addition to a mugger pitch, whilst the height of 3 meters is relatively tall for a fence. Given that it'll be mesh construction, it will allow sight and light to pass through and not provide visual block to the surrounding area. The site itself will be made secure by a 2.4 meter weld mesh fence bordering the site, which is typical and commonplace on school grounds to ensure safeguarding. The proposed site incorporates the retention and provision of natural landscaping measures and swales to provide a visual contrast against the development features across the site. The design of the proposed scheme is considered to be acceptable and in accordance with current policy. In respect of neighbouring amenity, the closest residential properties to the proposed development are located along the eastern and southern boundaries on the opposite side of the classified T2012, approximately 10 metres from the site boundary. The proposed layout of the development has located the school building centrally on site, with areas of landscaping located to the south, providing a buffer between the proposed building and existing residential properties. Again, to the east, while the proposed mugger and associated fencing will be within 20 metres of neighbouring properties, it is not considered the proposed development will have an adverse impact on neighbouring properties in terms of visual impact. It is noted that neighbouring properties border the boundary of the site, and given the site's intended use along with a mugger pitch and outside areas, the application has been supported by noise impact assessments. Environmental protection have been consulted on proposed developments in respect of noise and are satisfied with the conclusions of the noise impact assessments for mechanical plant and a mugger pitch, which identifies that impact on neighbouring residential properties will be low. However, conditions in respect of the acoustic fencing and barrier, as mentioned within the acoustic reports, will be conditions and attached to any granting of plan permission to ensure there's no detriment to neighbouring amenity. The application has also been supported by a construction environment management plan, which environment protection also considered to be appropriate, and the measures included within will be attached as conditions to any granting of planning permission. In respect of artificial light, this has also been considered by environmental protection, and is which they are also satisfied in respect of the information provided. In respect of highways and parking, the proposed development relates to a replacement school on the site adjacent to the existing Brunlow Hall School. The existing school will remain in place given its listed status. However, to ensure that replacement of the use is transferred to the new site and not in addition to an appropriate worded condition to control the use of the existing site in relation to the proposed development will be attached to any grants of plan permission. The applicants has proposed to route vehicles associated with developments along the B4368 with the 2012, which is south east, looping round through Pentray towards Pentray Bridge. This is to relieve the number of large vehicles accessing the site via the A489 C2012 from Kerry direction. Highways have been consulted on the proposed development, considered the proposed routing is acceptable. However, it is acknowledged that some vehicles attending the site will continue to use alternative routes. The Highways Authority consider that sufficient mitigation is proposed along the proposed route in terms of widening the access and development frontage and improvements to the junction of the C2012 and the unclassified 2850. The Highway Authority considered that these works should be completed prior to the commencement of any other works at the site to allow vehicles associated with the construction to pass appropriately. Whilst active travel is a consideration of every application, especially those which have the potential to generate pedestrian, cycle and public transport needs, this application has been assessed as a replacement school with conditions attached as such. Therefore, the existing school site does not benefit from any active travel links currently, and as such being a replacement school, proposed development does not worsen the current situation in respect of this. The proposed development proposes a surplus of parking when considered against the current CSS parking well standards and provides sufficient electric vehicle charging points. Having reviewed all the associated information in respect of the proposed development, the High Authority have therefore recommended conditions in respect of access parking, charging points and drainage to be attached to any granting of planning permission. Officers therefore consider the proposed development to be fundamentally acceptable on highways grounds. In respect of ecology and biodiversity, there are no statutory sites within 1 kilometre of the proposed development. However, there are sites of ancient woodlands within 1 kilometre, with ancient woodland being located on site as well along the northwestern boundary. The proposed development will predominantly impact areas of amenity grassland and species poor semi-improved grassland separated by hedgerow and tree lines. There are a number of protected species on site and within the vicinity, and having consulted Natural Resources Wales, a European protected species licence will be required for the proposed development. Conditions in respect of mitigation measures and enhancements in respect of protected species have also been recommended and will be attached by condition to any grant of plan permission. Control in respect of external lighting will also be conditioned with any granting of planning permission. Also identified are invasive and non-native species, and therefore a biodiversity risk assessment will also be conditioned, along with a construction environment management plan. The landscaping measures proposed are extensive across the site and supported by a green infrastructure statement, with many biodiversity enhancement measures proposed across the site. In respect of the details provided and the measures subject to condition and the responses from the Paris ecologist and Natural Resources Wales, proposed development is considered to be acceptable. In respect of drainage, in respect of surface water, the site has had SAB approval granted for it. I know comments were made in relation to the swales. I understand there are attenuation tanks below those swales as well to take the capacity of water, but it does benefit from SAB approval. In respect of foul drainage, the proposed development seeks to utilise packet treatment plants, which has been consulted on by Environmental Protection, which is deemed to be acceptable with no objection raised to this proposed means of foul drainage. As mentioned, the existing Brynlawr Hall is a Grade 2 listed building, and therefore the Built Heritage Officer from Paris County Council has been consulted on the proposed development. It's noted the proposed site has historically been part of the gardens and parkland of the house and has historically been divided by trees from the main house and grounds. It's considered that there will be a minor negative impact on the setting of the property by the loss of this area. However, it is considered that the hall will retain enough ground around itself for its immediate and slightly wider setting to be intact. The existing Brynlawr Hall site is not just a building, there are a number of courtesis structures within the blue line. It's also noted along the rights of way route, which is the southwestern border on the red line. There are kissing gates there, which are also courtesis, which will be retained as part of the development. CPAT have also been consulted in respect of archaeological implications, which there are no records of. Therefore, based on the considerations given, the Built Heritage Officer has raised no objections in respect to the proposed development, and it's not considered that the proposal will harm the Grade 2 listed Brynlawr Hall. As mentioned, there is a right of way that's borders the southwestern red line of the development site. Through discussion with the agents, it's been revised that a 4-meter wide public footpath will be retained through this site. It was discussed at Countryside requesting 5 meters. Given what it initially was, 4 meters is considered acceptable. The kissing gates along the right of way, as mentioned, given their courteous status, will be retained as part of the scheme also. Taking into consideration the agricultural land status of the site, it is grade 3A. Welsh Government does put emphasis on grades 1, 2 and 3A to be retained without justification for their loss. However, given the history of the site and its use in connection with the school and community, the loss of the 3A land in this respect is considered acceptable in order to provide a modern purpose-built school to benefit the wider community and the students that it will serve. A number of public comments have been raised on the application and echoed by the 2 speakers speaking before. Officers considered that those measures have been addressed within a delegated report to make a recommendation. The recommendation I put before you is one of conditional consent. As mentioned previously, should members resolve to approve the application, the no decision hereby shall be issued until confirmation is received from Welsh Government in respect of any decision. I'll hand you. Oh, sorry, I got photos. Yep. So elevational drawings again. Here's a proposed layout of the school with all the varying areas, the breakout rooms, the associated teaching areas that the school will serve. So a roof plan is with solar panels installed on the roof also. Again, the elevational drawings of the proposed outbuildings across the site. Here is a sectional drawing of the proposed school sitting within the land. There is sections of cut and fill proposed across the site to enable the school to be situated on the land. So there was a couple of photos of the existing Brynlaw Hall, just as it's currently being used, noting the current condition. So this is from Pentre Bridge along the routes of where the proposed highway upgrades will be undertaken. So this will be leading northwards. The bottom left photo, you can see the kissing gate there. That is the right of way off the classified road onto the site. So the top left photo is pointing towards the site, and then the 3 other photos are the road leading round towards the existing Brynlaw Hall school entrance. So yeah, the 2 photos on the right, that's the existing entrance into Brynlaw Hall leading round to Kerry. Here you can see the existing agricultural field and the existing field in respect of where the development will be situated. The top right photo in the background through the trees is where Brynlaw Hall School is. Here's more photos of the existing site and its current condition. This is pictures of the right of way and existing kissing gates that will be retained as part of the development. More site photos. A visual impact assessment landscape was undertaken on the proposed development. It has been revised throughout the history of the application. It is noted the proposed development will be visible from sensitive receptors, including highways, public rights of way, and residential properties within the locality. As just mentioned, the application has been supported by a visual impact assessment, which is considered the development's impact on individual landscape elements and features, landscape character and views, visual amenity, and the people who view the landscape. As mentioned, the scheme has been revised since the initial landscape assessment was undertaken. I believe this is before the application was submitted and through the PAC process. With as it is now from initial comments raised prior to this application, the position of the school has been amended to take into consideration landscape. Consequently, a revised visual impact assessment has been undertaken to take into consideration those changes. The revised visual impact assessment has taken into consideration 7 key viewpoints as being representative of nearby receptors. So here you can see the map. There are 7 viewpoints indicated on this map in relation to the proposed development site. So this is viewpoint 1, looking southwest from the public footpath to Lynmauer Hill, approximately 240 metres from the proposed development. It is noted that these conifers have been removed prior to the application having been submitted. This is viewpoint 2, looking northwest from the public footpath towards the western edge of the site. This is viewpoint 3, looking northwest from the minor road adjacent Copper View in Pentry, about 280 metres from the proposed development. This is viewpoint 4, looking northwest from the B436H, adjacent to Kilthrough, about 705 metres from the proposed site. So as you can see, the site indicated. This is viewpoint 5, looking south from the junction of a public footpath and minor road near Kerry Pool, approximately 2.43 kilometres from the proposed site. This is viewpoint 6, looking northwards, adjacent to Ash Meadow and the access road of Upper Bryn Lawach, 305 metres from the site. Sorry, 350 metres. And then viewpoint 7, looking southeast from Chestnut View, a residential street in Kerry, 470 metres from the site. See, as recommended, a recommendation of conditional consent. As said, if you're minded to approve the application, it will be going before Welsh ministers for final say. I'll pass you back to Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. Over to members now for discussion. Who'd like to start off? Councillor Gareth E. Jones, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Could the officer just clarify condition 25,
Okay.
especially if the authority decides to sell the existing school building site, as the authority's currently got a significant excess of school places?
So condition 25 reads as the existing and proposed school, as detailed on the specified drawing number, shall operate as one school unit. As noted, the existing school is a listed building with listed coexisting structures within. given this constraint, the building can't be demolished, the site can't be situated on the existing site, as you may see with other replacement nature applications. The condition will ensure that the two sites don't operate as separate school units. The tie on that should enable or will enable, the development doesn't provide two separate schools on site. Powis's intention in the future, that's not something I can get into with this current application, but the land use restriction will enable the site to operate as one unit, not two separate schools.
Sorry, I understand that. That wasn't my question. My question, and I'll make it clearer, if Powis decides to dispose of the existing school site, whoever purchases, what restrictions will they have on their development of that site? Because I know the building quite well because I supported the school for 20 odd years. Yeah, from the finance point of view, but you know, I can understand what you're saying. But if I was still an officer in the authority in the education department, there's only one action I want to take with that existing school site when the new school is built, and that's get rid of, in my mind. And I just don't know what the.
Want me to come in?
Yeah. Yeah, no, thank you for the question. It's there really to act as control. The agent referred to it as well around that ensuring that you don't double up really on things like cumulative impact from development. Now, obviously, the future of the existing school is not an issue for us here. We're looking at the use, whether the use of the proposed application is acceptable or not against planning policy. So that's the key. But in the future, so it is a bit hypothetical, what would have to happen, they would have to amend the, look to remove the condition. We'd also have to, if it altered into a different use, there would have to be a separate planning application at the same time. But it's all around making sure things like traffic movements are kept within acceptable levels. If we didn't put that condition there, then you could see increases in movements and so on. So that's the purpose behind it. Okay, it's that additional control, but it would have to be amended, assuming it got permission, it would have to be amended and removed to enable future development for a different use, potentially
inclusion of sale. So you'd have to remove that condition for it to be solved. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hugh Williams, please.
Thank you, Chair. And can I also thank the officer for providing such a comprehensive report, and I have read the upgrades, but it's only fair as well in that I listened to the two objectors, and the highways was a significant part of their presentation. So is it, and that, you know, referred to highway upgrades in the officer's report, and passing places or lack of, and there's reference to a narrow bridge in the report. So is there a highway officer present that can sort of summarize or go through these details which the objectors mentioned?
There is indeed, Councillor Hugh. We have Simon Crew in the chamber right now. So over to you, Simon, if you want to address those points, please.
Thanks very much. So you've got the existing school at the moment, and the vehicles coming in come a varying different routes. So most of them come along Common Road. We've tried to encourage the movements in relation to the replacement school to come in the opposite direction, as you picked up. That's not to say that they can't continue to use Common Road. There are no restrictions, and we're not able to restrict the movements in relation to planning conditions, because that's prohibited more or less by the planning circular. So the existing route from the school, so if you came out of the new school, turned right, headed down towards Pentry, there are a few informal passing places as existing. So as one of the objectors said, they are essentially driveways. However, you've got to bear in mind that from the carriageway itself until the boundary of that premise, everything in between is highway. So whilst it's given access into somewhere, it's still within the highway boundaries, or within the lateral extent of the highway. So that's permissible to use. There is a junction with a grass triangle in the middle. The grass triangle is going to come out be resurfaced as the Highway Authority are doing across the county. And that'll act again as an informal passing bay. And the bridge at the bottom, yes, it is narrow. We do have swept paths on it, which are all acceptable. So from a highway perspective, we do not see that there should be any real issue with directing the traffic down through Pentry. To answer your question.
So Hugh, would you like to come back?
Yeah, it's just interesting that people's driveways are considered passing places, which was noted by the objectors. And I've not heard that mentioned in previous planning applications, but the officer has stated that that is the case. So I will consider that, but I accept his view on that. I'm sure the residents wouldn't share that view, that they are informal passing places acceptable, but there we are.
It's always been my understanding that you can't use someone's driveway as a passing place.
You can.
I'll come back to you.
So just to be clear, we're not suggesting that people drive into people's properties. So if you consider, if you've got in a built up area, you've got a footway, and that footway goes from the edge carriageway to the boundary fence or the boundary hedge of a house, a school, a car park, whatever it may be. All of that footway is within the highway extents. So when you get to an area like this, we don't have footways, we've got highway verges. So when somebody's going to put an access in, they'll create the access initially between the existing carriageway and across that grass verge. So once the house is occupied and what have you, that what was the grass verge continues to be within the highway extents. So that area there can be used for passing. What people shouldn't be doing is entering into private land. So
Right.
if it's within the extent of the highway, i.e. what was at one point or would be at one point the highway verge, we consider that as an informal passing place. So you'll see on some applications that they talk about formal passing bays and informal passing bays. Well, these are informal because they're not designated as a passing place. Does that make sense?
It does. So essentially, they are still within the ownership of Powys County Council there, that area.
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hugh. Councillor Howland Hume, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just want to pick up on a couple of things here. On the front page of our report, under the Welsh Government letter of the 22nd of June last year, it states, in exercise of this authority, I hereby direct Powys County Council, with effect from the date of the letter, not to grant planning permission for the development without the prior authorisation of the Welsh ministers. So should we not have had their decision before it came before this committee today?
No, it's what it's called is a holding direction. So what Welsh Government have effectively directed us is that we cannot issue a piece of paper that says planning permission. We're at liberty to be minded, or we use a committee are, to resolve to permit, but we wouldn't be able to issue that bit of paper. We'd have to refer the recommendation or resolution of this committee to Welsh Government. The officer report would go off and the detail, and they will then decide whether they wish to call in the application and make the final decision themselves. So that's really around deciding the forward process. With holding directions, we're at liberty to refuse, though. Really, that is the only alternative decision you are able to refuse. Okay.
And second, Chair, I'm very pleased to see that a SAB approval has been granted in advance of this, because it's normally what I would deem retrospective. Okay.
I agree.
The other thing I want to pick up on is the school services. I'm aware that this is a much needed new school, but the school services have not commented. I'm very disappointed with that, because I'd like to have seen some evidence with regards to the increasing numbers that this school is going to provide, and what evidence have they got for that? But so I'm disappointed with that as well.
Do you want to pick up on it? Can you pick up on anything there?
Well, the proposed school will be for 64 places in age appropriate environments. So it's, as I said, it's a replacement from the existing functioning of the school to a new school.
What was the reason why school services weren't consulted on that? I think that's what Councillor Hugh is leading to.
We just chose not to comment, which I think is disappointing.
Obviously, the education authority is behind the application, so it's putting it forward, and it's entirely up to it whether it comments or not. Yeah, as all applications are open. Yeah,
Of course,
to
absolutely.
comment. Yeah.
Councillor Hume, do you want to come back, or are you happy with the answers?
No, I'm happy with that, and I'm very grateful to Richard for the photographs he's put up for us today. It is quite an elevated site, which does concern me, and I would have liked to have seen like a photo montage of the building on the elevated site as part of the presentation, because I don't think we get a feel for the positioning of it based on just the site layout, really.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Harvey Hume. Councillor Jonathan Wilkinson, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Richard, for your presentation. Clearly, having listened to the objectors, there's a lot of public concern about the new site and the visibility of the new site. And certainly when you look at the images of the old site juxtaposed to the new one, the old site is pretty much hidden amongst trees, and the new one is in an elevated position and will be highly visible. Can we assume, I mean, we will effectively consultees, we can make a decision, but it will be Welsh Government that ultimately is the decision maker here. That's correct, isn't it, Richard?
This committee needs to be satisfied that it's addressed all the planning issues and arrive at a resolution like a normal planning application. It's just we can't issue that bit of paper at the end because we will refer the resolution of the committee, if it was minded to approve it, to Welsh Government, and then it's just the forward process. Then they will review the documents that we send them, mindful of our decision, assuming it's approval. I'm assuming this is the other option, as I said just now, is one of refusal by this committee. But assuming we, as a committee, you as a committee, to approve it, Welsh Government then decide, having reviewed the paperwork, whether they call it in themselves to make the final decision, or whether they put it back to us to then issue the final decision. So it's all around, we can't give a planning permission, but we need to do as much as we possibly can to get to that resolution. Okay.
Okay, yeah, I understand that, but for this application to reach this stage, and a huge amount of work that's clearly gone into it, we would have had to have an indication, I assume, from Welsh Government that the site, for example, would be acceptable to them.
Well, there's a separate discussion obviously gone on around the 21st century school side of things, but this is purely looking at the planning, whether it's suitable and acceptable from a planning perspective. Now, Welsh Government won't be drawn on that. That's what will happen through the call in. If it goes that route, they will then review the acceptability of it, consider the planning implication. If they were to call it in, they would be considering those planning issues themselves. Potentially, the different options available to Welsh Government, how it does that. It could hold a hearing in which it invites relevant stakeholders to give evidence. It may decide to do it another route. It may not decide to call it in at all. It may say, Powys County Council, you may now proceed, we've reviewed it and don't consider it. Normally when they call things in, they consider it to be of national significance. That's generally the reason why they would call something in. It's of more than local significance.
Okay.
Okay.
And the other point that the objectors made about the presumption in favour of developing a brownfield rather than a greenfield site, is it right to assume then that because of the expense and complicated nature of developing the existing site, that then allowed Powys or the authority to look at the greenfield site and it allowed that to happen? Is that the case?
Yeah, I think the points the objectors were making are correct. The brownfield site should always be preferential to utilising a greenfield site. However, the policy approach here that we do have does enable community facilities adjoining settlements. Obviously, it may more complicated here that the brownfield site, if you think of that in terms of the existing school as a listed building, and that will limit it because of its heritage importance. It limits the remodelling of that building to suit modern educational needs. Yeah. So that does make it. You can't just go and flatten that building and rebuild. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jonathan Wilkinson. Councillor Angela Davis, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, like my colleagues have said there, thank you to the officers. This was a very in-depth report, and the maps and the drawings and the photographs have been really helpful in sort of getting an understanding of what's going on here. A couple of my questions have been answered there. I was going to ask, why can the new school not be built within the curtilage of the existing one? I think you've covered that. Out of respect to the gentleman that came to object, Councillor Jones said that there was no consultation in the Kerry area. Can I just fact check that? Because Mr. Archer did say he'd engaged with the consultation. So was there a public consultation that the Community Council could have and should have been engaged in the early stages?
Hi. Given the application is a major, it would have been subject to the Welsh Government Procedural Pack pre-application consultation prior to the formal submission to the local plan authority. That provides community engagement for consultees, public, not to raise any comments or matters that they so wish, to try and front load the plan application before it comes into the LPA to be validated and considered, and then as part of my process, once it's been allocated the application, it has also been subject to consultee with the Community Council, other statutory bodies, and also advertised for public comment also. Okay, so thank you for that. So that's really unfortunate that Mr. Jones feels that didn't happen, because there's somehow been something missed there, isn't there? The other question I've got really, from what the gentlemen say, their main objections seem to be the access and the visual aspect of the site. I just wonder, given we've been told that the catchment, or I'm assuming that the catchment for this school is far and wide beyond the locality of Kerry, so in a way the community facility adjoining a settlement sort of rule doesn't really apply here, because this isn't a community facility for the community of Kerry. Its catchment, pupil catchment area is wider. Did we look at opportunity to place this school somewhere else in Powys, or was it purely that this land is available and clearly a new school was needed, this present building being not fit for purpose? But do we know if any research was done to look at a better location? The application has been supported by a sequential assessment of other sites available to Powys, and as it is detailed within the report, but those other sites available, as mentioned by the plan agent in their public speaking, then they have been discounted for various strategic reasons, with the site proposed before us now to be the most viable, appropriate for the nature of development.
Lovely. I did read that in the report. I just wanted to give you the opportunity to sort of say that, really. And I'm a little bit concerned, like my colleague, Councillor Jones, that what will happen to the old building? And I understand you've explained how the restriction is upon it so that you basically can't have two schools there. I wonder why you ever would if the old existing building is not fit for purpose. Why would anybody ever put another school there? But I am a bit concerned about what will happen with it. So whether the council choose to sell it or repurpose it, but I'm concerned that we could have some assurance that it won't be left to go into disrepair. It's obviously, it's a listed building, therefore it's expensive to run, and I am imagining very expensive to maintain. So have you got further comments on that?
Yeah, I'll bring Peter in for that, Councillor Joe.
Yeah, clearly it's a listed building. The owner still has responsibility for ensuring maintenance of that listed building. So it would remain with the authority. So we have to look after it.
Yeah.
It's not an issue for the planning application in the sense that it's not part of the planning application now. So I see it separately, and I think we need to, as a committee, keep it separate. But I can understand why I'm concerned, would be concerned as well. So I can understand your concerns as members.
Yeah, we can ask questions, but we shouldn't take it into our considerations and deliberations when deciding on this application.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I do understand that, but at the end of the day, we're one council, aren't we? And somehow that would have to be paid for if we're left with an abandoned and empty building. So that is a concern I'd flag up. So my last question then, sorry for hogging the sort of microphone here, but based on the fact that the two objections then are about the visual aspect and the access, on the map of the school that's currently on the screen here, is there any opportunity for putting more trees to the south side that would help you know, soften the visual aspect, the impact for the villagers in Pentry? So there's a lake or a pond there. Is there opportunity for more trees on the south side, perhaps?
Richard, do you want to take that one?
There is significant landscaping measures proposed as part of the development, with additional landscaping features incorporated, trees, shrubs, planting. This is the proposal put towards us currently to be considered.
But could we make that a condition then, if we said, you know, to sort of try and appease the locality, if the visual aspect of the school is an issue to them, that a few more trees along that south side may make it more palatable?
There are landscaping conditions attached to the proposed development.
Yeah, there are. It didn't say tree specifically, but okay, fair enough. And the last one then, my last comment is, the road does seem to be a big issue, but the traffic is currently already going from Kerry to the main entrance of the school. Was there any option, it's a little bit difficult to tell on this map, to make access to the new building through the grounds of the existing building? Was that explored in any way at all? So not having a new access on that narrow road?
Just generally, there are no constraints to separate the existing school and the proposed school. There's a band of ancient woodlands that screens does separate the site, which would be a constraint in itself. And I know the topography of that land, the road to the north is much lower than the application site. The highways officer has mentioned about the particular control in respect of how vehicles can't be made to access the site from a particular direction, but measures have been proposed and conditioned which will hope alleviate any traffic concerns in respect of the development.
Yeah, no, I got all that. My question was, had any investigation taken place to extend that lane that goes to the existing Brynflower Hall through those trees to the new site?
This is the application put before us with the proposals to be considered. I'm not privy to the any pre-app sites kind of like the very first kind of discussions for the site of how the proposals will be put forward. This is the outcome of those discussions, which I'm sure that the relevant departments and the agents would have had full discussions on coming forward with a proposal such as this before us now.
Okay, so, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Angela Davis. Councillor Peter James, please.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Richard, for your presentation. I'm just interested with the listed building and the layout for that. How much of the footprint is listed building? Because there's looking at the picture we had, there's quite a bit added to that original hall, isn't there?
Yeah, there are like Bryn Lawr Hall is a listed building. There are currently listed structures on site. There are also more modern mobile classrooms. I think like early 2000s, maybe some more recent additions to that school site as well. It is a historic site with grounds. There are, as mentioned, there's the Kissing Gates, which are located on the right of ways. There are listed features throughout the site, with Bryn Lawr Hall being a great.
So it's not just the building, it's outside the building as well of other historic.
Yeah, there are other like structures within the grounds which by virtue of their date would be listed, just in connection with it.
Okay, I was interested how the layout was of the original building. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Peter James. Councillor Gareth E. Jones, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you for letting me come back in a second time. Can I just ask a couple of questions? First one is, I know there's solar panels on the roof. Was there any considerations, or could we make it a condition that a ground source heat pump is put in underneath the market? Because it seems to be an ideal situation. They're going to have to dig up the ground so they could lay the pipes there, but that's just a comment from my point of view. The second one, you showed a couple of photos of the right of way. The access of that is very difficult for somebody in a wheelchair. Could we put a condition on to the application to say they should make it accessible for that right of way accessible for somebody in a wheelchair? Councillor Jones, when he spoke, mentioned the possibility of linking it to the main sewer in Kerry, and can we just have the officer's view why that's not being taken forward? And finally, linking to the farmland, my understanding is that the proposed site is where either a farmer or the school grazed their stock. Do we know if the school's is registered as an agriculture unit with the relevant bodies? And finally, on the plan, I see no area where they're going to graze their stock. You know, we're putting agriculture sheds onto the plan, but I can't see where they're going to graze their sheep or cattle or whatever they're going to have.
I don't know whether we can condition about air source heat pumps. We could put a recommendation on the committee that goes forward, but I don't think we could condition it.
No, sorry, Chair, ground source heat pump.
Ground source heat pumps.
And the member.
Yeah.
Richard, I'll come back and have it.
Yeah. As with any development, the most sustainable cutting edge technology would be proposed, but it's not something I can condition as part of this development. The right of way, those Kissing Gates are curtilage listed structures. They have been consulted on with the Built Heritage Officer, which are to be retained as part of the heritage elements of the site. So they will be in position along that right of way. Rights of way have been consulted on the application. There was discussion about the width of the right of way. They wanted 5 meters when it was, I think it was below 3 originally, but it's been bumped up to about a 4 meter corridor.
Could we, on that point there, put another recommendation to right away that they take in disabled access as a consideration. Can we put that forward? Not condition it, but we can put it as a recommendation from the committee if the committee was minded to approve the application.
Okay. In respect of the foul drainage, the scheme put forward would be private treatment plants. That has been considered as the most appropriate scheme for that site, with consultation from environmental protection, not objecting to that proposed means of foul drainage. So it is considered an acceptable means for this development in question. What was the other?
Grazing of animals.
Grazing, and whether the school is registered as an agriculture unit.
I'm not sure whether they're registered as agricultural units holds in, but as it's understood, they're more for like interaction.
I know the reason why they're there, but I just want, the concern I've got, if you look at the plan.
Animal welfare.
Animal, where are they going to graze them? Or are they just going to keep them in?
I'm not aware of the grazing of the animals or what animals they would be having on the site as part of it. But there is facilities there to enable them to be housed appropriately.
Do you want to come back, Councillor Gareth?
No.
Okay, Councillor Howland Hume, please.
Yeah, I just want to pick up on one thing. The Education Service are currently doing a review of schools in Newtown, which includes Treowen County Primary School. Has that been considered for any part of this education?
Do you want to pick up on that, Peter?
Yeah, the honest answer is I don't. Mike, I'm sorry. Honest answer is I don't know. Again, I make the point we've got to consider the application in front of us, but from listening to the agent at the start, this was put forward under the 21st Century Schools programme. So I think it's come via that route, and it's advanced, so it'll be further ahead than, and it's probably different to the primary school side of things.
Okay, thank you.
I noticed your hand was up. You've had your question answered, have you? Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Peter James. I've got a few points. The overlooking aspect that was picked up from the speakers, I would say position number 3 on the plan that you got there. If you go to that. Yeah, I take it that's a more elevated position than the closest houses that are to the site.
These photos are taken from the visual assessment that was submitted by in support of the application. This is down Pentray Road, which so yeah, you can see the site in question. There is a height difference between the road adjacent to the field, given its kind of curving nature, as indicated on the sectional drawings that are also provided the cut and fill of the site to situate the building.
And are we satisfied that we've got enough screening there that, as picked up by the speakers, that the school's not overlooking into those properties closest to the school?
Given the information submitted in support with the visual impact assessment, whereas like the initial one, just so the scheme before and the revised visual impact assessments undertaken found that there would be a negligible or slightly less adverse, slightly more beneficial impact compared to the original baseline that was undertaken. So no adverse impact has been raised in respect of the visual impact assessment undertaken. The school is positioned more centrally within the sites. You do have the buffers, the landscaping between the properties which are adjacent to the road and the boundary of the site, which is also adjacent to the road in relation to the building and the distances.
I just wonder, Chair, with that, I don't know if that photo foreshortens things, Richard, and you can go back to the site layout plan and if you're able to indicate where that red brick dwelling is.
It would be within this.
Is it that where the fork is in? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there.
Okay. And over to Simon Crew with regards to passing places. Are we 100% satisfied we've got enough passing places in there? Obviously, it was picked up by speakers. I just want to reiterate the point that we have got enough passing spaces, and highways are happy with that, the proposal.
Yeah, look, one point that I think I either made earlier or got lost with it is that these movements are already on the network. So it's not like we're adding additional traffic on. So these movements are already there. And with the 4 potential routes in, there is sufficient availability of passing places. As with any road, we would love that were more. But the reality of the situation is there's nowhere to put additional passing bays on the vast majority of our network.
Okay, thank you very much. And something very close to my heart, flooding. Potential flooding of properties was picked up. I believe we have Simon Crowther on the line. Simon, are you happy that the water retention tanks on the swale that is proposed are enough to mitigate any potential flooding to the properties surrounding the proposed site?
Good morning. Thanks for letting me speak. Yes, as the planning officer alluded to, there has been a SAB approval issued for the site. The current site only, I'm unsure as to what sort of drainage standards they would have been ever limited to from the site, but under SAB legislation, the new drainage standards are the 1 in 100-year storm event, plus 40% for climate change. So what they've done for the site is split it into 2 distinct catchment areas. There's one to the north of the site that takes a lot of the building, the front elevation of the building, the parking area, and that's end of the site, and that goes into a swale, then through into attenuation tanks where it goes through infiltration, then into ground. And then the lower swale takes the rear elevation of the property and some of the lower parts of the site, so such things as the mugger pitch in that area. And again, that goes through a swale and then through into attenuation tanks and again into good ground conditions that were shown through the process. Someone mentioned about a swale as being a pond. A swale isn't for a pond. What a swale is designed to do is to allow water to pass through it, to treat that water, to clarify it, clean it, if you like, and then pass through and into the attenuation tanks, which is where the majority of the storage for the surface water is. The swale will only have standing water up to about, I think it's about 300, 400 millimeters in the worst case storm event. So that's the 1 in 100 plus 40%. So it will be a dry swale 90% of the time.
So I don't know why it keeps going back to this.
Thank you very much, Simon. We do have another speaker. Councillor Gareth Pugh, please.
I can see it.
Thank you, Chair. Right, yeah, I think this is a marvellous development. It's very convenient for the council with Welsh Government money to deliver an up-to-date school. However, I was disappointed to hear from the agent because it's a grade 2 listed building that is not practical and suitable to renovate and restore and keep the heritage of the existing school. I do believe that anything is possible. It just comes down to the cost of it. So I really don't buy that spiel off the agent. One thing that concerns me is active travel has been mentioned. That the existing doesn't benefit from active travel. But this is a new application, and I believe this should be considered as to comply with Welsh Government policy. I think we've got to be very careful there. Just because it doesn't now, surely Welsh Government are going to insist, because it's a very strong policy, and I've been on the other end of that policy of active travel. I think we as a council have got to take this into consideration. Now, visual impact has been mentioned time and time again today. First of all, by David Archer. Now, I've seen applications in front of us which would have had far less visual impact than this application, and they've been brought down on visual impact alone. So again, this really concerns me. So I must be honest, I'm really struggling to see that this proposal is robust and complies with all Welsh Government policies. Therefore, I will not be supporting it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Gareth Pugh. Councillor Gareth E. Jones, please.
Yeah, just to clarify the point, I think that Councillor Pugh made around active travel. This is a area school. This is an area behavioural special needs school. The majority of the pupils in the school, most likely, I don't know, but when I was an officer, they'd be from Newtown, from Welshpool, even Llandrwyn, pupils living in Llandrwyn to go there. I would suspect that the number of pupils that live within the 2-3 mile radius before that they need to live would be 1 or 2% max.
Can I come in there, please, Chair? I appreciate exactly what you're saying, Gareth, and that the 1 or 2 or 3% might only come from Kerry. But if you look into Welsh Government's policy on active travel, they won't take that into consideration. Believe me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gareth Pugh. Thank you very much, Councillor Gareth E. Jones. I'm looking for which way the committee wants to go on this. I've got no other speakers. I've got no proposals put forward. I'm in your hands, members.
Can I just ask Peter one question?
Yes, sure.
If we defer a decision today, what impact would that have on Welsh Government's decision process?
On the planning side, it just delays it. What happens next?
So they don't consider until we make a decision, basically.
No, they are waiting for us to come to them.
Councillor Gareth Pugh, you'd like to come back in?
Oh, sorry, I'll lower my hand.
Oh, okay. Councillor Hugh Williams, please.
Chair, I've not heard any material reason why we can't that we should reject this application. So I'm going to propose that we accept the officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hugh Williams. Do I have a seconder to that?
I'd like to second that, Chair.
Councillor Tom Colbert. Thank you very much. Are both proposer and seconder happy enough to include the recommendations from Councillor Gareth E. Jones that potential ground source heat pump is looked at, and a potential disabled access for the right of way? You happy?
Yes.
Yes.
Proposer and seconder. Great. Okay, it has been Councillor Angela Davis, please.
Yes, sorry, Chair. Could we also ask a recommendation that the tree issue, that I've lost the word.
Additional planting.
Yes, additional planting on that south side, because I do think that would go a long way for the visual aspect for the residents in Pentre. So I know that there's the environmental sort of planting there, but that it be trees or bushes or.
The issue we've got with that, Councillor Angela, is we don't know the prescribed number of trees or proposed number of trees that are allocated to be planted. So they have stipulated in the condition that enough, I think it was a substantial amount of tree planting would take place. Is that correct? I can't remember the wording on it.
They have submitted green infrastructure.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, they've submitted green infrastructure statements demonstrating tree planting in line with current guidance, which broadly relates to 3 to 1 planting. There are landscaping conditions attached as well. And that'll be considered with the proposed scheme through the discharge condition application process for planting. There are trees and shrubbery within that southern corner adjacent to the swale. So they have got currently landscaping within that southern corner, which would likely be suitable in that respect. But any further can be considered through the landscaping condition and its subsequent discharge.
Yeah, so I'm just asking, can we flag that up and
Yes,
ask them
but-
to look into it, really? Yeah.
Certainly, Councillor Angela, as the proposer and seconder happy enough for that to go forward as a recommendation as well?
Yes.
More than happy, Chair.
Excellent. Okay. It has been proposed and duly seconded to go along with the officer's recommendation, which is one of conditional consent, subject to the Welsh Government Holding Directive. Those members wishing to go along with that proposal, please indicate in the voting slip that will appear in the chat momentarily. Thank you. There it is, members. 11:48.
Chair,
Councillor Gareth D. Jones, Vice Chair, please.
I have voted, but I think I voted wrongly. Can I abstain, please? Because my internet's been dropping in and out and I haven't been able to hear the whole of the debate. So I'd like to abstain, please, from this vote.
I will take that vote because the voting hasn't closed. I'm happy to.
Thank you.
Carol, can you record that, please? Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, it won't let me access this voting slip.
Okay, we'll come to you for a verbal, Councillor Vaughan.
Right, thank you, Chair. So I just need a vote from Councillor Elwyn Vaughan, please.
For.
For, thank you. Right, Chair, thank you. So we've had 10 votes for the application, 3 against and 1 abstention.
Thank you very much, Carol. That meets with the officer's recommendation. We'll have to wait now to what the Welsh Government decide, whether to call it in or not. If they do, it will be down to them for the final decision. If not, then that will come back to Powys and the rent will be issued. Is it the committee's wish we stop for a comfort break or to proceed? Comfort break, and then nods from the chamber. So we'll stop for a 5-minute comfort break. Thank you. If you could keep your laptops logged in just mute them at home. Much appreciated. Thank you very much. Welcome back, members. From that short break, we will now do a roll call to make sure everyone's back in the meeting. So back to Carol for that roll call, please.
Thank you, Chair. So, Councillor Carl Lewis.
Present.
Councillor Gareth D. Jones.
I'm at.
Councillor Tom Colbert. Councillor Angela Davis. Councillor Deb Edwards.
Present.
Councillor Highland Hume.
Present.
Councillor Peter James.
Present.
Councillor Gareth E. Jones.
Present.
Councillor Karina Kenyon Wade.
Present.
Councillor Jeff Morgan. Councillor Gareth Pugh.
Present.
Councillor Elwyn Vaughan.
Councillor Elwyn Vaughan. Come back to him, Carol.
Yeah. Councillor Jonathan Wilkinson.
Present.
Councillor Hugh Williams.
I'm at.
Just Councillor Elwyn Vaughan.
Councillor Elwyn.
Chair, it doesn't look as if he's actually
Dropped out.
or let me just check on the backstage. No, he's not backstage either.
So he must have had technical
Might have-
difficulties his
Yeah.
end. Okay, we are quorate, so we can proceed. We're on to our next application, which is 23/1531/OUT, outline permission, erection of affordable dwelling, creation of access, installation of treatment plant and all associated works, and some matters reserved, land known as Caemaudi Slough Brontlease. Taking us through this application is Kate Bowen. Over to you, Kate.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, all. Yes, just to clarify, this is an outline application for the erection of affordable dwelling, etc. Access has been considered at this stage. The reserved matters are appearance, landscaping, layout and scale, which are reserved matters for future consideration with a future application. Before I just take you through the basics of the application, I just want to clarify that an additional representation of support was received quite late yesterday afternoon after I prepared the update report. So that takes the total of support representations to 13 that I have received. The matters referred to in the representation echo those that have already been included in the update report. In addition, we have received a request from the applicants and their agent to defer the application to allow the applicant further time to submit additional information to support the application. We're not recommending that that action is taken because we do believe that additional time has been allowed for the applicants to submit that information, and even an update or an additional supporting statement was received yesterday. In addition, I have seen correspondence that asks for a site visit. Obviously, in the planning protocol, that is action taken in exceptional circumstances. It's not considered to be exceptional circumstances in this instance to warrant a site visit, because we're not objecting to the visual and landscape impact of a dwelling at this location. So we don't feel a site visit would furnish your information in this instance. Right, I'll just outline the application for you now. So this slide shows the application site in aerial view. The application site is denoted by the yellow arrow. It's sort of to the northeast of Brontlease settlement and to the sort of north of the Honey Cafe. It's agricultural land. It's generally surrounded by agricultural land. Obviously, the Honey Cafe is located to the south. The A479 trunk road is donated by the yellow road, travelling to the east. The site is accessed off a Class 3 highway, which travels past the Honey Cafe. The site currently accommodates a temporary residential dwelling or accommodation, which is the subject of the enforcement notice, which is detailed in the officer's report. This slide shows the location of the proposed development. The land edged red is the application site. The land edged blue is within the ownership of the applicants. This slide is the block plan, which shows the indicative layout. It is only indicative at this stage, gives a feel of how the site could accommodate the proposed dwelling. Obviously, the dwelling is shown centrally. The workshop building previously approved under a separate planning application and referred to in the report is located in the kind of northeast part or in the northern part of the location plan, and the Honey Cafe again to the south, separated by a piece of land or a field. This slide shows artists' impressions of what the proposed dwelling may look like. Again, just to reiterate, appearance is a matter reserved for future consideration. So this isn't put forward as the final design. It is just something to show us an artist's impression of what the dwelling could look like and how the land would accommodate a dwelling. I'll stop there for public speaking. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kate. First of our speakers is County Councillor Tom Colbert, please. Tom Colbert, you have 5 minutes and you may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've called this in because I believe that the application is controversial within the village of Brontlis. Indeed, I've attended a number of community council meetings over the past year or so, and this has been often the subject of discussion. There are people within the village who are against this application because it lies outside the development area. And there are also a number of people who are supportive of it and do not believe that it would have any detrimental impact on the village. I believe that in the normal course of events, this application would be refused. However, given the amount of disagreement and the amount of conversations that have gone on, I think it's appropriate that the applicant is allowed to speak in a public forum to put the case. Thank you, Chair. That's it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tom. Our next speaker is Julian Edwards, the agent, and I believe Julian Edwards and Sarah McCarthy, the applicant, are going to be split in their time, and you can split it however which way you decide. But it's 5 minutes to be shared. And you may begin when you're ready.
Thank you all for the chance to speak today. We appreciate your time taken to consider our application. We're a local family of 4. My husband, Declan, a local business owner, joiner by trade. Myself, Sarah McCarthy, a local business owner, and my previous occupation as an equine and ruminant nutritionist. And our 2 beautiful children, our son Rory, age 7, and our daughter Gwenna, age 5. I was raised in the area. I resided most of my childhood on the family farm in the Black Mountains. Our family tree dates back to the 1700s of farmers and nurses concentrated within this one small area. The pandemic's unforeseen aftermath on the housing market has meant that in recent years, we, like many other locals, have struggled to find suitable rental properties or affordable homes to purchase within our area that even reflect any of the standard local earnings. At present, there seems to be a large shortage again still. Due to this, we are fearful of facing homelessness, as we are unable to reside too far from our business, rural enterprise, and our important support network. We are led to understand that the site on Caermawdy, Brontlis, we do not meet all the criteria of the planning policies. However, there is not a one-size-fits-all policy. We've already obtained planning permission and also a wider SAB approval for a commercial premises on this site to bring our already established business closer to the local area as a means of providing more employment and apprenticeships to locals. We have security concerns with the new site. We will hold a larger amount of assets and stock as opposed to what our current premises does. This poses a larger business commitment and security risk, especially considering a recent breaking in the building site only within the village of Brontlis itself. Living on site, understandably, will ensure security for our family business we've worked so hard to build. Since 2021, we began to establish our rural enterprise, a flock of Vallis black-nosed sheep. Due to the high value of the breed and all year-round breeding season, the animal husbandry requires 24/7 on-site management. We've always resided on-site with the flock, and this has contributed to the enterprise's success. We're due to lamb in February this year, and due to the rare breeds, we sell our animals on-site, which also poses a further security risk. The affordable dwelling proposed is minded to consider the area, community and environment. Having it set into the landscape and a grass and herbage roof for the neighbouring bees to enjoy, we are also wanting to build a sustainable home, as we're very conscious of providing a future for our children and their generation. Also, as local people, we're fully aware of what is more suitable and needed for our area. This area is our home, where our family and friends reside. Our community, support network and life has been established in this area, not just in recent times, but from generations before ourselves, and we hope to preserve this for the future generations to come. This to us is invaluable and something we cannot find nor re-establish anywhere else. And this is our home. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch. Julian Edwards, do you want to continue your time?
I will do, yep. Diolch Cadeirydd ac aelodau am y cyfle i siarad â chi y bore yma. Firstly, thank you to the officers for their professional and attentive approach to all our dealings. What has been a difficult time for Sarah and Declan. It's been mentioned that we had, following publication of the report, hoped to submit some additional detail, but we acknowledge timescales on this, but we did feel that there was merit in doing so and a deferral would be appropriate. Part of that detail was to be submitted in the form of a visual representation to give members an understanding of the wider context, particularly in terms of how the applicants perceive the site and its relationship to Brontleys. In the absence of that detail, the query was raised by Sarah and Declan whether members would be better placed visiting the site, although it's acknowledged this is a decision for members. What you have before you, and we're grateful again to the officers for showing the detail, is very much a flat mapping image, and it was felt that you'd be better viewed on site. Notwithstanding, whilst being confident of compliance, we are confident compliance with the wider planning policy framework, albeit in the absence of additional detail. It's also considered critical that in accordance with planning legislation that weight is given to other material factors to give confidence to members to support the proposal today. Sarah mentioned the fact that the proposal does not tick all criteria of all policies. That's not necessarily the final requirement. As the planning policy framework evolves, and it's noted that powers this week have announced the launch of the replacement LDP, this will shape this decision making, and also it's evidenced by. Okay, can I, in conclusion?
You can conclude.
Yeah, sorry. It's respectfully considered that members have the ability to make that balanced resolution today in favour of the principle of the application, allowing the applicant to submit whatever additional detail will be required to address other concerns, and also that an approval can ultimately be given based on the unique circumstances of the site and subject to whatever controls the LPA would consider reasonable, and this will be done such that it does not undermine planning policy, is done on planning balance, and does not set any form of detrimental wider precedent.
Thank you very much. That concludes our speakers on that application. I'll hand back now to Kate to take us to her recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this slide shows the inset map for Brontleys. Brontleys is classified as a large village by the LDP. The application site is shown by the black arrow. The site is outside of the development boundary of the village by some 119 metres approximately. The development boundary is shown by the black line on the map, obviously surrounding the village. The application or the development is predominantly put forward as an affordable dwelling, but as mentioned, the public speaking, there is other factors to be taken into account as well. But obviously, predominantly as an affordable dwelling, policy H1 supports affordable housing developments as logical extensions to large villages. And generally, planning policy supports a sustainable pattern of development in terms of the settlement hierarchy. I'll just show a few pictures now of the site. This is the site taken by a colleague previously, just to show it was previously a obviously an agricultural field, which is bounded by trees and hedges. This is a site more recently taken by a colleague in terms of the temporary accommodation that's currently on the site. This slide shows looking back towards the Honey Cafe and the village from near the access of the site. So obviously this is the access road to the site. This slide shows the application site sort of centrally in the photograph, with the Honey Cafe on the left, and obviously the access going to the site. This is taken outside the Honey Cafe, looking back towards the junction which leads to Bronfleece. See, that's parking there for the Honey Cafe. This is just a bit further along that road towards the junction. And this is taken at the junction looking towards Bronfleece. The blue road signs are the nameplate for Bronfleece. And this is taken at the junction looking back towards the Honey Cafe, and then obviously beyond to the site. So from a development management officer's point of view, whilst a design could be achieved to deliver a visual and landscape impact that is acceptable, given the location which is visually separated from the development boundary, and given the requirements of policy in terms of affordable dwellings, the proposed development is not considered to comply with policy H1 for affordable dwellings. Therefore, the site is in open countryside. Dwellings in open countryside are only permitted in limited circumstances as conversions, like barn conversions, as rural enterprise dwellings, or as one planet developments. Obviously, the public speaking did mention a rural enterprise of the agricultural enterprise. Very limited information has been submitted with the application to support that element, i.e. no rural enterprise dwelling appraisal has been submitted. So we're unable to assess whether there is a need on site in connection with that enterprise. Otherwise, the workshop was previously approved, which I believe houses or accommodates a joinery business. That unfortunately is not considered to be a qualifying rural enterprise. That requires that location to enable it to operate. So therefore, a dwelling is not considered to be needed for that specific enterprise in this instance. In terms of other issues, obviously, the report outlines that impact on amenity is considered acceptable, ecology impacts are considered acceptable. The Highways Authority has recommended conditions for access. However, it is considered as not sufficient information otherwise in relation to the need for the affordable need. In terms of what we require these days is that applicants register and are assessed with TITEG to assess their financial and personal circumstances to qualify for affordable dwellings. So we haven't had that information. The plot size is too large, insufficient information in relation to foul drainage and the impact on the River Wye Special Area of Conservation is also included as a reason refusal, as is the loss of agricultural land. So whilst it is recognised that a sustainable energy efficient dwelling could be proposed, and probably has been proposed, it's not, however, the principle of development is not considered to comply with policy requirements of the local development plan, and on balance, whilst recognising the information put forward in support of the application and within the public representations, the recommendation is one of refusal as set out in the original report and the update report.
Thank you very much, Kate. Over to members now for discussion, please. Who'd like to start us off? Councillor Howland Hume, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Whilst I am fully supportive of supporting local families to remain within their communities, what disappoints me about this is the lack of sufficient information for the officer to take it forward. The information that's missing is standard information that should have formed the planning application from the outset. Last July, we were in this chamber, we had a discussion. What does a good planning application look like? Good is when you submit a detailed, concise planning application, not something like is in front of us today. I'll leave it there, Chair.
Wholeheartedly agree with what you say there, Councillor Howland Hume. Councillor Gareth J. Jones, please. Gareth D. Jones, is it? Yeah, Vice Chair, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, totally agree with Councillor Hume and yourself. I will move heaven and earth to support people who want to stay within their own communities. It's so important for everything that we stand for. But we've heard from Kate now, lack of information, foul drainage, River Wye, loss of agricultural land. There is so much here that hasn't come before us to give us any possible chance of supporting this. So it is with regret that when you're ready, Chair, I'm happy to move that we go with officer recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. Councillor Karina Kenyon-Wade, please.
Could I please ask, would it be more advantageous in this situation if the house was open market rather than affordable housing, or not?
Over to you, Kate.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. No, it wouldn't be. No, we don't permit dwellings without justification in the open countryside.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jonathan Wilkinson, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is an application like Councillor Gareth I'd instinctively want to support, but I think the lack of information puts Kate in an impossible position, to be perfectly honest. I'm just a little bit of clarification. You said you weren't minded to give more time because they'd already had enough time, you felt. What would be lost by giving more time?
We're trying, as a planning authority, I guess, to determine applications in a more timely manner to meet Welsh Government performance targets. And where an application significantly lacks information, we feel it's better to give that recommendation, and then they can come back at another time at a later date in a new application and provide all the information that we've identified that is required.
Understood, Kate. Yeah, yeah, following that, I'd be happy to second Councillor Gareth's proposal.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jonathan. Councillor Gareth E. Jones, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I wonder if the officer could give us a little more detail of what type of businesses are considered as rural enterprises. In my mind, you know, a joiner is a joiner, but if they're making bespoke furniture, for example, to me that's totally different if they're just working on building sites, as an example. And I note from Mrs. McCarthy that I've seen the documentation, it is a small flock, but it's a small flock of pedigree, expensive animals, which may well be making quite a reasonable income. So if you could give us a little bit more detail around that.
Yeah, so the policy on rural enterprises is set out in national planning policies. That's set out in Technical Advice Note 6, and there's an associated practice guidance. Rural enterprises, for the purposes of planning policy, are considered to be enterprises that are land-based. So they are required to be, so a dwelling would be required to be at a specific place because it is land-based. So obviously, historically, agricultural enterprises are considered to be rural enterprises. They have broadened the policy in that to make, because they do recognise that obviously it's not just agriculture that exists as businesses in in countryside, in rural areas now. So they have broadened the policy under this TAN 6, which extends it to things like potentially tourism businesses, so caravan parks, for example. It could be support services to rural enterprises, so potentially agricultural contractors, that type of thing. But it does have to be a land-based rural business. So the joinery workshop, I believe it's related to cabinet making for kitchens or making kitchens. We don't consider that's a rural enterprise because it doesn't have to exist at that location and isn't dependent on that land to exist in terms of the policy considerations. Obviously, the pedigree sheep flock is a rural enterprise. It's an agricultural, if it's an agricultural business, an agricultural enterprise. However, we haven't had the sufficient information to assess the nature of that enterprise, its performance, its profitability, yes, exactly why it's a pedigree business, why specifically a dwelling is needed there to support it in a rural enterprise dwelling appraisal. So that would be required to enable assessment.
Thank you.
Yeah, basically it's looking at complying with TAN 6 to show that you can make an income from the land. There's a simpler way of thinking about it.
And having that information provided to the officers so they can actually make that determination.
And Kate hasn't received that information, so.
It also has to show, not only that obviously how the enterprise operates, but also that a dwelling, that an on-site 24-hour presence is meant to be, is needed to support that business as well. So, so where emergency situations arise, it's not just security, because obviously security measures like CCTV, security fence, etc., can be put in place. But yeah, that there's obviously an emergency situation may arise that requires immediate action. So yeah, for example, lambing, etc., maybe those sort of situations.
And I know it's, for example, it's a contractor requirement for our small holdings that the tenants live on site, isn't it? Because they've got that issue going on at the moment. So yeah.
Okay, Councillor Angela Davis, please. Excuse me.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I feel very sorry for the applicants in this case. The applicant there gave a very passionate plea of why they want to live in this property. And on the face of it, it's not very far out of the village, and the community council support the application, as do others. But it's frustrating for us as a committee to have this application without the required information, because we've heard from our planning officers and the planning portfolio holder that they have undertaken a great deal of work to work with agents and applicants to ensure that these applications come in with the right information in order to get them assessed and passed or declined in a timely manner. So I think if I were this applicant, I would be wanting to have a very serious conversation with the agent, because there's a lot of money involved in putting this together. There will have been a lot of thought. I'm sure they've had a lot of sleepless nights thinking about what they would like their dwelling to look like, how much they can afford, etc., etc., etc. And that's cost money. And yet it hasn't met the guidelines. And the guidelines are there, aren't they? They're online, they're available. The local authority offers a pre-planning application process. So I think we're getting to the stage where there isn't really an excuse for us to be having applications with information missing, because this is standard information that's missing. So like my colleagues, I do feel extremely sorry for the applicant, but I don't think, based on what we have before us, that we can go against the planning officer's advice. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Angela Davis. There are no other speakers wishing to put themselves forward, and it has been proposed and duly seconded to go along with the officer's recommendation, which is one of refusal. Those members wishing to go along with that officer's recommendation or otherwise, please indicate in the chat slip that will appear momentarily in the chat. Thank you. There it is, members. 12:32.
Sorry, Chair, I've got 11 votes on the system and there are 12 members able to participate in this discussion and vote. So Councillor Jonathan?
Support the officer's recommendation.
4, thank you. So Chair, we've got 11 members with officer's recommendation to refuse the application and 1 member has abstained.
Okay, that meets with the officer's recommendation. Thank you, members. On to the next application, which is back with you, Richard.
Chair, we just need to bring Councillor Tom Colbert back in.
Bring Councillor Tom back into the fold.
Thank you. Just later. I've been noting going back.
Very sorry, I must have
Just welcoming Councillor Tom Colbert back to the chamber and Peter Morris, professional lead for planning, back to the chamber. Once they're settled, we'll proceed to the next application. Okay, members, on to the next application, which is 23/1372/FUL, land adjacent to Holly Dean, Hall Bank, Churchstoke, Montgomery. Proposal change of use of agricultural land to domestic curtilage adjacent to allocated housing site 19/00993/OUT. Taking us through this application is Richard Edwards. So back to you, Richard, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, committee. The application is before you today as it's been called in by the local member who has exercised their right to do so. The application site is located within the community council area of Churchstoke. Let's go to the next slide. So the black line denotes the settlement development boundary of Churchstoke, which is classified as a large village. The drawing on the right as indicates the red line in which this application relates to. Consent has been sought for the change of use of agricultural land to extend the domestic curtilage in relation to a previously approved planning application. The site relates to a development of 4 dwellings that have previously been approved and constructed within the settlement development boundary of Churchstoke. So the proposal seeks to change of use of the red land to slightly extend the curtilage. The change of use across the 4 plots in total measures approximately 600 square metres. In respect to principle of development, there's no specific policy which prohibits the change of use of land, but firstly, there's no policy which prohibits or allows. The land in question, having considered agricultural land classification, is considered to be 3B, not a quality of land which is required to be preserved for agricultural use in accordance with the policy. It is noted that it's a small area of land that will form part of the change of use, given that it will form part of the domestic curtilage of 4 existing dwellings that are already in sight, and that the parcel of land in question, so the development site was 1 plot up to the agricultural curtilage. The development boundary, as you can see on the left, splits through this plots of land, so they're seeking to extend it up to the natural agricultural boundary. It is noted on previous applications when the scheme was went through the planning process that the garden boundaries were brought in line with the development boundary through previous consents. Here are a couple of site photos to the rear of the properties in relation to the change of use of agricultural land. The dwellings have been built in accordance with the approved permission. The post and wire fence, as you can see on the bottom photo, is a very small garden area to the rear of the plots. This is in accordance with the approved plans. The natural field boundary extends on the top left photo. In the background, you can see the post and rail fence, which has always been in place. The proposal will seek to remove the put-in post and rail fence adjacent to the garden's rear boundary, to remove that and then to extend the previously approved close bordered timber fence to the rear of the plots, as you can see in the top left photo, to the existing agricultural boundary, which will allow each plot to benefit from a larger residential curtilage. None of the dwellings in question are affordable, so it won't prejudice any affordability of those dwellings in the future. There's no highways concerns in respect to the proposed development, and given the nature of the proposed change of use. Reason for the application to come before committee, as I mentioned, was call in by the local member. Amenity concerns were the main reason in which they've requested the application to come before committee, as is concerned that garden structures could be erected within the residential curtilages, such as garden office room, sheds, and associated paraphernalia that you would see within a garden. Officers, considering the nature of the change, do not consider that the change of use of the agricultural lands and the extension of the close border fence to the rear boundary would be a detriment to any neighbouring residential amenity. It is noted that previous appeals in respect of prohibiting garden structures within change of use of land have been upheld. So we've lost those previous challenges in respect of restricting that no garden, sheds, etc. to be erected within those areas. As mentioned, it relates to a change of use of lands. There will be no impact on existing trees or hedgerow, as this current situation. It will remove the. It relates to removal of the post and wire fence, extension of the close boarded fence to the rear of the properties. It is noted on the original application there are hedgehogs present within the area, so an appropriate condition in respect of hedgehog holes will be put on the any grant of plan permission to be included within the close boarded fencing. Officers have reviewed the information, nature of the change, considered to be acceptable in line with plan and policy, and therefore a recommendation of approval is to be made. There'll be conditions in respect of external lighting and biodiversity enhancements attached to any granting of planning consent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. Over to members now for discussion, please. Who'd like to start us off? Don't be shy. Councillor Highland-Hume, please.
Seeing those pictures, those back gardens are very, very small. And I see nothing in the report here today that I can't go along with the officer recommendation, to be quite honest. Thank you.
Is that a proposal, Councillor Highland-Hume? Councillor Gareth E. Jones, please.
Yeah, I'm happy to second the officer recommendation, Chair, but I have got one question. And before I ask, I think Richard may not be able to answer the question. Does he know why this is category 3B in agricultural land when other land we've discussed today has been category 3A?
So Welsh Government have a data set, agricultural land classification, basically a mapping system with grades of agricultural land mapped on it. So as part of the application or officers' determination of applications, they can review that data set, identify the location in respect of the classifications, and then make that judgment. But it basically states the classification like 3B.
To me, that looks no different to the land of Brynllaw as an example, which I think was a 3A.
Specialist people have probably assessed the quality of the land, but that's the information that Welsh Government present to us.
I may choose not to comment on that.
Okay, Councillor Angela Davis, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to ask about the tree. There's mention of an ancient tree. We can see a tree in the corner there. I can't see that that tree would be affected by the removal of that new fence. We can see a tree that's been cut off, but that doesn't look recent. Do officers know anything about the safety?
So in the top right photo, I'm stood right in the corner, taking it with the big tree directly behind me. The proposal just relates to change of use of the land, so there'll be the post and wire fence closest to the dwellings was put in as part of the planning consent. That'll be removed. The close boarded timber fencing is then sought to be extended, just a continuation of a previously approved aspect of a development.
So, Chair, given there's no proposal to remove any ancient tree or affect the landscape really in any way, I'm inclined to agree with officers. So I'm happy to second the proposal that we move and support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Angela. I believe it has been already seconded by Councillor Jones.
Thank you, sorry.
For your observations, I agree. I can't see why there's any issue with this myself. The gardens do look very, very, very small currently, and yeah, this would extend it out and probably have a lot better area for recreation for those properties. No other members wishing to contribute, so I will put it to the vote. It has been proposed and duly seconded to go along with the officer's recommendation as set out in the report and the update. Those members wishing to go along with that, please indicate on the voting slip that will appear momentarily in the chat. There it is. 12:47.
Chair, 13 members able to vote and all 13 have voted for the officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much, Carol. That obviously meets with officer's recommendation. That concludes the planning applications for today. So we go on to item number 5 now on the agenda, which is the decisions, the delegated list. Are there any observations from members, or are you happy to receive them? If you are, can I have a proposer and seconder? Councillor Deborah? Deb Edwards, you're on mute.
Got the wrong button, sorry.
Okay.
On the delegated list,
Yep.
under the Knighton community sector, there's one in there for New Radnor that should be in a different community, but I've only been picky.
Okay, we'll make a note of that. What page is that on, just for clarification?
Oh, I'm on the, where am I? Hey, Knighton. Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's on page 145.
Yeah.
And it's agricultural notification, application number 231723 AGR.
Okay, and the correction you've observed needs to be corrected is
It
what
needs to go into another community, which I would imagine is New Radnor or Old Radnor. I don't really know which one covers that area.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
All right then. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Howland-Hume.
Yeah, I just want clarification on something. On some of the discharge of conditions, the decision is split decision. What does that mean exactly?
Peter, do you want to take that one?
Oh, I think Richard.
Oh, Richard.
Yeah, sometimes you get discharge condition application. It's got multiple conditions submitted as part of it. Some of the information isn't acceptable for some of the conditions, whereas some of it is for others. So we do a split decision. So they would have to come back in again for further discharge of those ones who lose as part of it.
Thank you, Richard.
Okay, can I have a proposal and seconder that we accept those? Thank you very much, Councillor Gareth and Councillor Howland-Hume. Thank you very much.
Subject to the amendment.
Subject to the amendment, rightly so, as Councillor Deb Edwards has pointed out, if that correction needs to be made. Okay, on to item number 6, the appeals. Is there any observations there? Are you happy to receive them? Councillor Jonathan Wilkinson, please.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, my observation is regarding an appeal, which is related to the Town of Freeth Caravan Park, which I had grave concerns about during the application process and continue to have. Is it appropriate for me to mention or catalogue my continuing concerns, or because that appeal has been dismissed, does that end our involvement as a committee with that process?
I'll take advice from our legal expert, Rachel Mull, here.
I'm not entirely sure, Peter. Are you able to?
Yeah, we obviously report appeal decisions, so it's a learning exercise for all of us with them. So obviously, the inspector in that situation, it's all different to this committee, which is part of the legitimate part of the process. When it comes to what the committee's role is going forward, there's likely to be discharge of condition required. It's whether they ever make their way to this committee. They could be called in. If there are things prior to commencement, for instance, that must be submitted for approval. But again, there needs to be a good planning reason to call them to committee. That's the only way I could see committee being involved, or potentially if they decided to amend the scheme somehow. So effectively, it's got planning permission now. So the decision's been taken. Any officers, any other thoughts? No, looking at Kate. Yeah.
My personal advice, Councillor, would be just in case email concerns to the officers.
Yeah, I'll take that advice. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, microphone wasn't on then. That concludes our planning meeting for today. Apologies for my tickly cough throughout. I'd just like to thank members of the committee, officers who presented today, and members of the press at home, and members of the public. Could we have the date of the next meeting, please, Carol?
Yes, Chair, next meeting is on the 1st of February.
Thank you very much. 1st of February it is, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you all then. Thank you very much. I end this meeting.